Ever crafted the perfect outbound campaign only to get ghosted? Well, you're not alone. In this video series, AEs, SDRs, and CROs get brutally honest about sales outreach, sharing their most creative tactics that got them ghosted and the unexpected approaches that actually worked. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Ari, co-founder and CRO at Foundations, a GTM engineering firm building the revenue systems, processes, and infrastructure that scaling B2B companies need before they start hiring. Ari, welcome.
Appreciate you having me, Matt. Very happy to be here.
Thanks for coming along. Well, look, let's get straight into it. So I'd love to hear about a time when you crafted an unusually creative message or piece of outbound that actually ended up leaving you ghosted.
Yeah. As an outbound expert, so to speak, I do a lot of outbound. I do a lot of calling. I do a lot of messaging across pretty much every single gamut of social that you would think of, whether it's SMS, email, phone calling, etc. And sometimes you get really, really creative in the approaches that you make because cutting through the noise now more than ever is very, very difficult. I remember one time in particular where I was looking at a company's job descriptions. And within the job description, they had a couple of lines that were very specific as to what they were looking for in that role. And those lines aligned perfectly with the header on our website. So what I did was I took a screenshot of the job description, those lines, screenshot of our website, pasted them together, and put an arrow between the two and said, this is exactly what we do. I thought it was really creative and interesting. And unfortunately, I didn't get a response back for it. And that's just the way that the cookie crumbles. Even with the best cold outreach, you can only expect a 5, maybe 10% response rate from people. And so even with the most creative things, you're like, oh man, I thought I nailed that. I thought this was really, really good. You can only expect so much from it. And it's just about getting more times at bat. And instead of looking and trying to do something creative once, doing something creative multiple times.
No, I love that as an approach. I think, again, we know there's an absolute deluge of outbound out there, so you've got to get a bit more creative and a bit more bespoke to, the people that you're trying to target. But that's a great one. So, look, I'd love to also know about a time that you did something that you're like, it's a bit of a shot in the dark, or something that's a little bit unusual or unexpected that actually ended up getting you that meeting.
Great question. So pulling from my experience, this is actually something that happened very, very recently, less than a month ago, where I identified a organization that was hiring for an enterprise account executive. I took a look at their org structure and I noticed that they haven't been able to keep a head of sales in 4 years for more than a year. So they were getting constant churn on the leadership side. I then took a look at Glassdoor and RepView and noticed that they had awful, awful reviews on that side as well. So there was obviously a bunch of very significant gaps that this organization had. So what I did is I crafted an email where I identified and I said, I noticed that you're hiring an EAE. I noticed your rep view scores. My subject line was actually your average rating on Glassdoor is 2.4. So getting a lot of attention right out of the gates and being very honest and straightforward into what I saw. And I crafted an email calling all of these things out line by line. Hey, saw that you were hiring for an EAE. Saw that you haven't been able to keep a sales leader for more than a year for the past 4 years. I see that you're working with a fractional COO who's probably where revenue is flowing up into. If his job is to oversee your 9 sales reps, then he probably does not have enough time to give that a concerted focus. And I think there's a lot of places that we can help you out with. Are you open to speaking? I sent that email to a friend of mine to see what he thought of the email. And his response back to me was, I think you were a little bit too abrasive here, Arya. I think you might rub him the wrong way. Well, I responded with the meeting notification of the CEO in question booking a meeting with me. He ended up booking the meeting 2 hours after I sent him that email. He didn't respond to the email. He simply found my meeting link and booked in with me immediately, which was really incredible to see. And he kind of ate his words. He's like, well, I guess I was wrong then. And it's interesting because there's always a couple of places where he thinks that he has the upper hand on me, and I'm like, no, I know what I'm talking about, and we had a good laugh about it.
Love that. Love that example. Yeah, I think sometimes it's just being super direct, and it's just a little bit taking a little bit of a risk, right? Because I think a lot of messaging tends to be too safe, and actually, there it's like you're being straightforward, you're taking a bit of a risk, but you're standing out ultimately from the crowd, and it shows that you've done your research as well. It's not just a generic templated outbound message. It's like you've actually taken the time to understand their pains and the organization as well.
That's exactly it. A lot of CEOs, I find, the people that they respect the most are the people that are going to give it to them straight, especially an organization that has been around for decades. And you have a CEO leader that has been in that role for a very, very long time. They are used to people downplaying situations, beating around the bush, not being direct. And the only thing they want really is people who are going to be direct, straight to the point, and give them honest feedback. Because if the people they work with aren't giving them honesty, then they're not able to go and build an organization that they see being huge. So I find that is one of the things that a really savvy CEO is going to look for.
Nice. No, yeah, totally makes sense. Um, awesome. Well, look, we're going to do 5 quick fire questions. So if we're ready, we'll get right into it. So it's the same questions we're asking all guests. So firstly, what's one metric every commercial leader obsesses about too much?
Dials, the actual amount of dials that people are making. If all you're focused on is outbound metrics and you're not considering what the results are on the other side of those metrics, then you're basically going in blind and you're just doing the same thing over and over and over again. And you're not basing it on what works, you're just basing it on overall effort, which, to be clear, is not a bad thing all the time. However, I would be a lot more interested in what are your conversions from outreach to meeting? Who are you reaching out to? And how does that differ from day to day?
That's great.
A lot of leaders are just focusing, I like to call them dashboard leaders. And all they're doing is focusing on what's the dashboards because it looks good. And it looks like you're doing a good job on paper, but doesn't always convert into revenue.
Awesome. Um, what's the one outbound best practice you think is completely overrated?
Volume. Volume is important. Let's not underplay that. It's important to do enough, but purely focusing on volume and nothing else is going to hurt you. When we think of volume, we think of canned responses, canned replies, canned messaging that is wide reaching. There is a place for that, and it should be a part of your strategy, but your focal point should be a lot more strategic. In a world where you have outreach sequences, you have AI outreach, you have automation up to the wazoo, the things that really cut through the noise are doing things that are not scalable. Making sure that you're looking up who you're sending a message to, looking up the reason why are you sending this message to this specific person? And does this message convey that information effectively and quickly? Because if you can convey that and you could say, hey, I'm reaching out to you. I just connected with you on LinkedIn. I connected with you because of this reason. I'm reaching out to you to book a meeting because of this reason. And that's why I think it'll be valuable to you. Are you open to that? You'd be shocked at how many people are actually open to going forward and talking to you when it's actually relevant to something that they're doing.
Love that. I think the word for me there is doing things that are not scalable. I think that's super powerful that, that you bring in the personalization, that bespoke approach and that creative approach as well. So that's brilliant. What's the most embarrassing outbound tactic that you've tried that you'd never admit to your co-founder?
Well, we admit everything to each other, but I would say the most embarrassing piece of outreach that I have done was exactly the previous one, was sending out tens of thousands of emails with a generic message without going and doing my due diligence on scrubbing the list and just shipping it. It was fairly early on where I should have known better, but I didn't know better. But I was still in that spot where that kind of stuff kind of worked before, and I was happy about it. And I just did it anyways. It's something that you don't obviously get you don't get any negativity back or anything in that sense. Like, no one's going to say, oh, you really, really messed up badly and now we have to fix this. It's just the time that you lose by not doing it correctly. And for someone who knows better, those are the most embarrassing moments.
Okay, well, I appreciate you sharing that. I think that's probably something that I wouldn't say is a rite of passage. That's the wrong quid, but like something that every salesperson has done at some point, right? Is that mass outbound, which clearly doesn't work today.
Yeah.
What's the wildest response a prospect has ever given you instead of just unsubscribing or saying no thanks?
Very good question. I was on a cold call and I was talking to somebody and saying, hey, we help organizations just like yourself find out what your bottlenecks are and find out how to get past those bottlenecks when it comes to your revenue. And the person's response to me was, I don't have any bottlenecks. And that was just absolutely mind-boggling to me. You think of any organization up to Amazon has bottlenecks. Every organization under the sun has some kind of limiting factor that is preventing them from scaling, reaching higher heights, and getting to where they need to be. And to have someone just blatantly say, like, obviously it was a brush off and it was just saying something to be like, okay, I don't want this, but it just made no sense. Just zero sense at all.
I love that. It's just like, no, I don't have any challenges, no bottlenecks. Everything is working at 100%. That's wild. And final question, what is the one piece of advice that you give to, SDRs or AEs that are looking to improve their outbound?
Don't shy away from calling. No one likes to pick up the phone, call people nowadays, myself included, but I still do it. And it's because people don't want to get yelled at and people don't want to get told to F off and they don't want to hear negativity. They would prefer to send an email out in the void, send a LinkedIn message out in the void. And if they don't get a response back, that's fine. At least I didn't have to get yelled at today. And unfortunately, calling is the absolute best way to test whether or not your message resonates or not. Because people cannot hide behind a screen. People cannot hide behind ghosting you and ignoring you. They need to tackle what you're saying head on or simply hang up the phone. And hanging up the phone is a result in and of itself. The last thing people want to do is pick up the phone. And again, it's understandable. By doing that, you were able to test your messaging. You were able to understand what's resonating, what's not resonating. How are people responding to my messages? And how does that translate when people actually got on a call? Did they understand what I was talking about? And there is no better way.
It's funny you say that because I never really thought about it in terms of message testing before. And I think it's a good lesson for marketers as well to be a lot more joined up with the teams that are doing the calls, because I feel like, that's a great way if a company's looking at doing product marketing or homepage messaging or rebranding. What better way than to work out what's going to resonate, what the pain points are, what's going to be the benefits of that company than having that live in the field with people that you want to sell to, your future potential customers.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, awesome, Ari. So good to have you. Thanks so much for taking your time. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure having me. Thank you so much.